Hey, what's up, folks? It's Tiger Paul Craven in the house. Little bit different format this year. I got one of my friends on with me this year. We're going to be doing a season preview for you on the channel. Um, DeAndre, if you want to introduce yourself to the people watching.
But a lot of y'all know me as PGO Football Funk. I represent Black and Gold Pittsburgh Steelers, Purple and Orange, Clemson Tigers, and also East Carolina University, which is also Purple and Gold, and also the historically Black college football. I follow all football, but I'm a big fan of Pittsburgh Steelers. Grew up being a fan. Clemson Tigers, grew up being a fan. Went to ECU, and also I enjoy Black college football. So yes, I'm a big fan of football, high school, midgets, anything you want to name. I love football, and that's all into it.
All right, man. Thank you for that. A little bit about myself. Uh, Tiger Paul. Kind of new to the YouTube game. Been watching for a long time. Been watching a lot of YouTubers and kind of just dipping my toes into it this season. I did a few videos last season, just some previews and some post game reaction. Me and DeAndre will be doing a show on Mark Rogers TV on his Clemson channel this season. We will be doing post game reaction to every Clemson game this season. So make sure you guys, if you guys stumble across this video, come check us out on Mark Rogers TV, the Clemson channel, and we will be doing post game reaction to every single Clemson game, win or loss. Me and DeAndre will be there. And we will either be super mad or maybe we won't. We'll see how it goes, right, DeAndre?
Yeah, sometimes those wins last year were kind of ugly, so we were kind of mad even when we did win, boy. Yeah. And sometimes you get mad, I was like, "Oh, we go to this game be that close."
That's
Georgia
right.
Tech is one of them because
Yeah,
that
Georgia
game
Tech
last year.
that was a tough game. That was, I think Georgia Tech was the game when I truly uh, can't not really realized, but I kind of accepted that okay, something's wrong with this Clemson team. Would you say that's the game that did that for you last year, or what game last year did that for you for Clemson? So
I'll go to the Georgia game. I just didn't think our offensive line was very good. I think we got destroyed. I don't think we should have played it. Opening week, I know everybody else was excited for it. I think we played well, but we haven't been good on offensive line in a very long time. And you can look at how we have drafted Mitch Hyatt, who was one of the top players coming out of high school, 4-year starter. He didn't even get drafted. Cameron Jackson, he struggled. Top player out of Ohio. Um, I just think our offensive line play has to improve if we're going to keep competing with Georgia, Alabama, and Ohio State. That area, I think we keep getting whooped at, even no matter how good our players are on the outside and the running backs that we have. Offensive line recruitment and play had to get better for us to really improve, and I saw that with Georgia.
okay, so keeping the mindset with our offensive line since you brought that up. Um, what do you think our major issues were on the offensive line? Do you think it's a recruitment issue? Do you think it's the type of offensive line that Clemson recruits? And do you think that has changed since Robbie Caldwell has retired and we have a new offensive line coach in Thomas Austin?
We're gonna have to see what Austin can do because this is his first year. But he also said that he wanted to recruit bigger type of offensive linemen. But
Right?
I can't think of his name. Pollard, who's from Southern Pines, North Carolina. He was a big recruit. he kind of struggled all 4 years. So I think it had a lot to do with development, um, and stuff like that. That's what I think the main problem is. It's always the interior offensive line. We always get good left tackles who are top 32, 5 stars, but the interior offensive line always seems like that's where the problem lies. And that's where a lot of the problem lied last year. Center, we wasn't very good. Um,
How many
Putnam,
centers, before you finish, how many centers did we start last year?
think about 3. I think the main guy that was supposed to start, he broke his hand. Then
Right.
Brock Horse got moved over. Then we started another guy at center. And we got a center that was supposed to be the number 1 recruit in the nation, but we haven't seen him. I think they're trying to build his strength. Ryan Lupskin. I think he's supposed to be the number 1 center that came out a couple of years ago, but we haven't seen him yet. So
yeah, we just didn't see him last year.
Oh yeah, he was a freshman. I think he was redshirted, but COVID probably didn't help with development. I think that might have hurt us too. But yeah, I just think that we have an offensive line problem, and if we're going to compete with the big boys, that's what we're going to have to do.
Absolutely, I agree.
Right.
So moving past the Georgia loss, so we lost that 10-3, as you know. So just a quick recap of last season. The Georgia game was number 1 on the schedule. Clemson fans were super excited. Our defense balled out, in my opinion.
Right.
I'll talk more about that, but I think our defense absolutely balled out. I mean, anytime you hold a top 5 team to 3 points, you should win that game. I mean, am I right?
Right. And that's a game that we should have won. I mean, it was an interception. I still don't know why they put Ross at the slot last year, and he ran the wrong route, caused the INT, and the guy took it to the house. And we had our chances because I think Spector had an INT close to the 20 or 30. I might have scored 3 points off of that. But, I mean, that's just one loss that we had to eat. But I want to make a point of reference here, and this is why I also think it was a bad game. Go back to Florida State when they played Alabama a couple of years ago. I think DeAndre Francois was at quarterback. That was a pretty good game till DeAndre Francois went out. But Alabama destroyed their offensive line, and Florida State hasn't been the same since. So I think playing those games early like that kind of hurts us.
So, in your opinion, you didn't play less of those kind of big ticket games early in the season?
I think you need to have a game start off like, let's say we play Furman, first game of the year, get the kinks out, see what we're looking at, and see what we need to improve at. You going up against Georgia with Justin Ross coming back off a major injury, that kind of hurt our mojo going into the game. And I'm not gonna say we would have beat Georgia anyway. I think Georgia defense was just that good, but we got short and we could have seen what we needed to work on. Sometimes you got to work on stuff. Like I think that's what's gonna happen to Texas the first game of the year. Alabama's gonna destroy their offensive line. They're gonna lose confidence, and they're not gonna be right for the rest of the year.
Yeah, that's a big possibility. I think that goes into a lot of what happened last year. And I think, a lot of what you're saying makes sense to me because after that first game, it seemed that Clemson's team, especially on offense, not on defense at all, but definitely on offense, like we were kind of shaken to our core. Like DJ, I don't know if he ever really recovered from that Georgia game.
Right.
And watching him as a freshman and watching him as a sophomore, I mean, it's almost like a completely different quarterback. Like it's absolutely amazing to look at the same quarterback and see those two results. So I think a lot of what you said is right, and I think maybe we didn't have the offensive line to compete in that game. I mean, they had Jordan Day. I mean, they just had dogs all over the defense, right? I mean, every network today talks about it, and they're like, "Oh, that's a generational defense. That's a generational defense." They kind of talk about the Georgia defense last year, like they talk about the LSU offense in 2019, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that airified air. You can't touch that kind of group that those two particular groups were. I mean, they were just too good to defend or to score again. I mean, you look at it, what did Georgia give up last year? What, 10 points a game, maybe?
Right. If that.
In today's college football, that's absolutely insane.
But I will make a point about this though. 2018 Clemson, I think that was the year, the one that beat Alabama. I think that one was better because if you notice, Georgia did not play any great quarterbacks until they got the young. But if you look at who Clemson beat on that Alabama team, you had Tua, Henry Ruggs, Smith, whoever else you can name, Jacobs, Harris, both Harrises. I mean that offense was just amazing for us to do that to them.
Yeah, I would say the 2018 Clemson defense is definitely up there with last year's Georgia defense. I know a lot of people would scoff at that, and maybe we're just some Clemson homers that they're just like whatever. But that 2018 Clemson defense, they were serious. I mean, what they did to that Alabama offense that had literally ran through the SEC and destroyed the SEC all season,
Right.
locked them down,
Right.
and then ended the national championship game with what was it, a 6, 7, 8 minute drive, whatever it was,
Right.
to ice the game. I mean, that was something special.
Right. And this is another thing I like to point out. Think about that LSU team the year before they won the national championship. They weren't that good. Or they were good, but they weren't great. And then all of a sudden, they get an NFL coach that takes them to another level. Nobody was talking about Joe Burrow, but you saw that Clemson defense be consistent all the way through their time at Clemson. And so that's when I talk about Clemson defense compared to how great that LSU offense was. They just got an NFL guy and they say, hey, let me show you a couple things.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. So the consistency, that's what I look at. That group was coming. Even with Kelly Bryant at quarterback, if you go back to that game, I know we're not supposed to be talking about this year, but the year that Kelly Bryant lost to Syracuse, remember we had lost our kicker also that year, and our defense was pretty good. And, we lost the kicker for the Syracuse game, and our kicker missed all them kicks. But we're going to talk about this year. So, I don't want people coming in and be like, well, what is this dude talking about 3 or 4 years?
Yeah, so we kind of got down into a rabbit hole with the Georgia thing. So we lost to Georgia 10-3. Defense put up an epic performance. Offense looked completely abysmal, which they continued for most of the season last year. So rolling into North Carolina State last year, what are your first memories of that game, or what's your initial thoughts?
I think we had 13 penalties, and that helped North Carolina State win the game. I said Georgia Tech. That helped them win the game. But also, I like to point out, yes, we lost to NC State, but remember this: Tyler Davis didn't play, Breezy got hurt, and Shipley got hurt. We went to Raleigh, and they needed double overtime to beat us. Justin Ross missed a catch on in the end zone in overtime with a hurt arm. Mm-hmm. So we talk about how bad Clemson looked last year. However, go back and look at that game. Another thing I like to point out to you is DJ struggled with the 3-3-5 defense. And also I want to say he struggled with the 4-2-5 defense. I went back and looked at Boston College game where he first started. They ran the 4-2-5. And then if you go look at Georgia Tech, North Carolina State, somewhat Georgia, they all ran at 3.35, and that gave him a lot of problems. So did South Carolina. So did Syracuse. If we look at those games, he had a lot of issues with that type of defense. And I think what they did is that they set three across and came up and played two corners up on their receivers, and then they just set the linebackers back. So I think that's what also hurt them, and that's where that quick slant guy I think Will Taylor's going to help out with, or Brandon Spector. They're going to help us with that. So I think that's what does. I think that we're going to do pretty good this year. But like I said, you go look at, there was a lot of factors, the reason why we lost to NC State. And it took them double overtime. But I know NC State is kind of, everybody said, well, NC State might get Clemson this year. First, the game is in North Carolina. I mean, at Death Valley. Second, NC State lost their two top running backs, their best wide receiver, their best offensive lineman. I depending on which publication you read, they returned 3 or 4 of their offensive linemen. But Clemson still got after the quarterback last year, O'Leary, whatever his name is. They still sacked him a lot last year. Yeah. We go back and look at that game. Clemson turnovers kind of hurt. Clemson's penalties kind of hurt Clemson during that game. So I really think that's what we need to go back and look at when you look at that game. The injuries and penalties, that's what cost us that game. And I'm not saying NC State wasn't a good team, but that's what I think kept them in the game.
Yep. I agree. We lost to Georgia, we lost to NC State, and our last loss last year to make us 10-3 overall was to Pitt, the overall ACC champion last year. They kind of took the crown over there with Pat Narduzzi. What are kind of your real quick synopsis on that game?
Okay. Oh, excuse me 1 second before you go to that game. Go look at Iowa State 3-3-5 defense. Mm-hmm. We had game control on them. I think the final score was 20-13. And that's another team that gave us trouble with the 3-3-5. So, like I said, just go back and look at that. But as far as Pitt go, Pitt was a very good team last year. Don't get me wrong. Pickett is really good. He's with my Steelers now. But go back and look at that.
Now he's your boy, right?
Yeah, unfortunately. But anyway.
Come on now.
Look at 7 minutes to go in the second quarter. Clemson has a 7-0 lead on Pitt. Shipley misses a catch on a backup running back. Wide open, no space. And that's what type of luck Clemson had last year. I remember the last drive, Pitt held the ball for like 7 to 8 minutes. And one of the reasons why they had the ball, I think it was Moscow. He had hit the quarterback when the quarterback didn't have the ball. Or he told he was yelling at the dude, saying something to him, like, you ain't stronger than me. Sunday he said to somebody, he got a penalty. I'm not saying that Clemson would have moved the ball down the field and scored, because Pitt had a heck of a team last year. But just go back and look at that game and look at that was a momentum changer. Shipley missing that catch. You had a chance to put Pitt down 14-0. And I know people say, well, they still lost by 10 points. But momentum is big in college football. We all know that. So I think that's what hurt us too.
I agree. All right, so shifting gears, we'll leave last year in the rearview mirror for us. Moving on to the 2022 Clemson football team. We got a lot of changes on the 2022 Clemson football team, right?
Right.
Yep. So what we'll start with is our coordinators. We'll start on the defensive side of the ball. So we lost Brent Venables. He went over to Oklahoma. He is now the head coach at Oklahoma. He took our defensive line coach with him. So now we have Wes Goodwin as the defensive coordinator, and we have Mickey Kahn as the assistant defensive coordinator. What are your thoughts on those two guys and the defense moving forward as far as play calling?
I think they're going to be the same. I mean, I know don't be funny for a second. If Larry Coker could mess up 2001 Miami, they can't mess up this defense. I mean, he got been around so long. I'm interested in see what they're going to do at corner. You're hearing a lot of great things about Nate Wiggins and Sheridan Jones.
AJ Terrell, right? Like that's I mean, that's high praise.
Yeah, you got some more dogs back there. Fred Davis, who got in some trouble last year, I think the first 4 games he had to miss. You got Sheridan Jones, who's been there for him and Tyler Winfro got to have a record for being around Clemson the longest. And then you got Andrew McCuba, we got Mickens back there. Those are areas.
Malcolm Green, Tyler Venables. I mean, you got all those dudes back there.
Let's just hope Tyler Venables don't have to guard nobody. I mean, you go put him down special teams. Let's put him out there for that reason.
Oh, no.
I'm not a fan of Brent Venables' kids. Yeah, I'm not in favor of them playing. Don't get me wrong. I think they're really good kids, but I just think I think they're just like Will Turner. I'm glad he's gone. Like you got players better than him that you're starting this guy, but I'm not there in practice. Maybe those other guys might be more talented, but they do the wrong thing and reliable. So that's what I look at. But
Wes Goodwin, what kind of player do you think he'll be? Do you think the defense will change at all? Do you think they'll be more aggressive, less aggressive? Do you think he'll get the play call? So one of the complaints with Brent Venables, as great as he was, and I'm not criticizing by any means, but one of the criticisms with Brent Venables was that he got the play call in so late that sometimes Clemson got caught with their pants down on defense.
So
plays got put on their head because he waited a little too long to get the play call in. So what do you think happens there? Or maybe it doesn't change. What's your thought?
I'm surprised more people didn't catch on to it. You remember the UNC game a couple of years ago? We beat UNC like 21-19.
Yes.
That's when you first seen that where more teams saw like, hey, we're gonna do a sugar huddle. They still look at the sideline, hike the ball, and let's go. Then you saw Ohio State do that. I am very shocked that didn't get done. But as far as being aggressive, I think it's going to be the same aggression that that Tyler Venables brought. However, what I'm hoping for is that your defensive line is so good that you'll go play coverage more and not get beat up there. Because he got some speed out there that nobody has seen before in years. I mean,
So before we get into the linebacker, I want to get into the heart of the defense this year, and we all know what that is. It's a defensive line. We'll get into that linebacker core that you were talking about here in a second. But let's get into that defensive line core. We're talking Miles Murphy, KJ Henry, Brian Bersee, Ruka Rororo, Justin Maskell, XT. I know he's injured right now, but he'll eventually be back.
He always injured, man. I don't know what's wrong with it.
I know.
He can't walk to the water, man.
Like XT is like how he flashed as a freshman was crazy, and then he's kind of been dormant the entire time that he's been at Clemson. But how do you think? I mean, this defensive line is obviously, in my opinion, I think it'll be the best in the country. What do you think?
Oh, by far. Best unit in the country. Yeah. I mean, I know some people might say Ohio State's receiving core, but I think Clemson, especially as Xavier Thomas is healthy, is better. think about this. Xavier Thomas was behind Lawrence and Fields as the third best player coming out of high school.
Yeah.
Breezy, he was behind DJ and what's my boy name? Young out of Alabama. He was the
Bryce
third.
Young.
Yeah, Bryce Young, third player. Tyler Davis was such a beast. Go look at Tyler Davis numbers compared to William Perry or Chester McLaughlin. Tyler Davis numbers was off the chart compared to those two. I
You
not.
think
I
Tyler
don't.
Davis was better than what's his name?
That's Lawrence.
Yes.
Different type of style of players because Dexter Lawrence was more of a run stopper and he had up more blocks. But I think Tyler Davis is a better pass rusher. But I think both of them get the job done. But I remember that team with Dexter Lawrence, Wilkinson, and them playing against Auburn and sacking the quarterback so many times. I think they went. Auburn had came up to Clemson, and I think they sacked Stidham like 13 times that game, and like Clemson just straight dominated. That team, and that team was just nasty. I think this team has a chance to be better than that along the defensive line because it's deeper and more experience.
Okay.
If you go back and look at the 2018 team, like you just mentioned, Xavier Thomas, he was the backup and he was a freshman. So think about this: you have Mascow, who's like got 6 years of eligibility, played 6 years. You got Kevin
Senior, Ruka Roro's a senior, KJ Henry's a senior, XT's a senior, Miles Murphy's a junior, Brian Brzez's a redshirt sophomore, so he's basically a junior too. So all these dudes have kind of been there a little bit.
And we haven't talked about Page. We ain't talked about
Peyton Page. Yeah, absolutely.
Ty Williams. I think he's gonna be out for a little bit. We haven't even talked about them. Then we ain't talking about Cade, who's a redshirt freshman. And you got I can't remember the other kid that came out last year too. I mean, you're loaded across that line. I'm shocked some of those guys didn't transfer to show off how good they are because especially along the defensive end position, that this is some of their last go around. KJ Henry, if people don't remember, he got lost in the mix because he redshirted. But people don't remember he was a top 10 recruit coming out of Winston-Salem, right up the street there.
Absolutely.
And then people call him like he just looked like he was ready to play.
But here's the thing: is people don't realize the depth that's on this line. Like a lot of people that I've heard are kind of comparing this defensive line to 2018. This defensive line is like way more, like it has way more depth than 2018. 2018, it was kind of like the front four, right? And if one of those dudes went down, Clemson's season might have been vastly different than it was. We just happened to get healthy that season. We didn't sustain any major injuries, especially on the defensive line. But we didn't have a whole lot of depth behind our front four. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
As far as the second rotation. This year, I mean, we got some dudes that can roll in. So I think defensive line is a big thing. We'll move on to linebacker. You got the likes of Trenton Simpson, Barrett Carter, Jeremiah Trotter, Keith McGuire. What are your thoughts on linebackers?
Don't forget about Bentley.
We lost Skowski. We lost Spector. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, that's a lot of tackles we lost. But we got way more athletic. We got way faster. I think we got better at linebacker than we were last year. What do you think?
And don't forget about Bentley. Number 42, he'd like to hit you. That dude is built. But, I mean, they're faster. I mean, I heard Dabo say Brett Carter's probably the best player that he's ever had at Clemson as far as being a football player, being able to play.
That's crazy because you remember back just a few years ago, they were talking about Isaiah Simmons like that.
Yeah.
And now they're talking about Barrett Carter.
Now, remember, Isaiah Simpson got redshirt and he had to develop when he came out of Kansas. So, yeah, I mean, he's a beast too, but this guy, I mean, I watched him when he was at Georgia playing football. I want to see what this guy like they call him next Isaiah Simmons. And remember, he played a lot last year.
He did play a lot last year. Mr. Zero. I remember, I think I was watching a Dabo Swinney interview or somebody. I don't remember who it was, but I was watching an interview, and they said, if you don't know Barrett Carter's name by now, you will at the end of the season. And that's from the coaching staff. So, I mean, we'll see what it is, but high hopes for him this year, right?
Oh yeah, him and remember him and Trent Simpson both played running back in college. I mean, in high school, so you know they can run. And Trotter, they already said he was the best linebacker that they ever have recruited because of the knowledge that his daddy had playing for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Right.
I don't know. I can't remember if Trotter played for somebody else too, but just the knowledge that he has as a football player, he's going to be one of the best. But I mean, they're going to be able to do so much with this group of guys, especially in coverage. I mean, you don't have to take them off the field. I mean, they're just amazing. And McGuire and Butler, I know they're going to get on the field some, but I mean, the last couple of, I would say this, outside of offensive line, and let's take Isaiah Simmons out of it, and we have not really been good at developing linebackers. And the reason why I say that, look at Skowski, Bower, Spector. What's the two guys that went to they were highly recruited, but they didn't do anything in the pros. I know people say, well, that's the pros, this is college. But what you develop, just like we develop good defensive linemen, look at what they're doing in the pros now. Look at what our linebackers have done outside of Goodson and Simmons.
You talking about like Trey Lamar and Jordan O'Daniel?
Yeah, those guys. Now, I know Daniels, he played with Kansas City.
He did, yeah. He played a little bit.
Yeah, but the other guys, they really didn't do a good job of developing and getting in there. I want to see more development out of our linebackers. And, I think Brent Venables playing his kids kind of hurt McGuire and Bentley at the
I think that starts with this group. Like, this group seems like an NFL-bound group.
Right.
Like, our front seven seems pretty serious. Like, so what we'll move on to now is, I guess, the question mark of our defense, which will be the back end of our defense. So we got the likes of Sheridan Jones, Nate Wiggins, Fred Davis, Andrew Makuba, Malcolm Green, those type of guys in the back end. I know I'm excited about how Makuba has developed this offseason. I think he's been pretty good so far in his Clemson career. I've heard Nate Wiggins compared to A.J. Terrell, which is, high regards. So what do you think our back end looks like this season? And do you think they can hold up? Or do you think they even have to hold up with that front seven being so nasty?
So let me say one thing about Andre Makuba. And I want to say, I want to make sure I get the story right. But think about it. Dabo says before you even come to Clemson, you have to be able to come there on your own dollar first, and then they'll bring you back for a visit. I think Andre Makuba went to Clemson sight unseen out of Texas. That just show you how amazing he is. And I think he played very well, playing a free safety. We lose Xavier Landers, but I don't think that's a big loss because I don't think he was a thumper. He wasn't a cover guy. And that's why I say Mickens is going to be a better at that position.
Yeah, RJ.
Yeah, I think he's going to be better. I think our secondary is going to be fine. Sheraton was highly recruited.
Sheridan Jones. He's a good dude, too.
Yeah. I think we were fine there. And like I said, you got to get that ball so far away. Your corners are just as good as what your defensive line make them to be.
Right.
Because
So that front seven is going to make that back end look pretty well.
right. So and Andre Cooper, he sideline to sideline, interception, he throw it over. And it's unfortunate the first 4 games, I know Wake Forest lost their starting quarterback for a while.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to be able to tell how good this defense is going to be because I think Georgia Tech is in shambles. I think they got a good quarterback, but they're in shambles. Furman, La Tech ain't going to be able to do nothing. And then,
Yeah, I agree. We'll talk about our schedule a little bit later in the segment, but our schedule sets up for our defense looking absolutely dominant. And then we'll find out later in the schedule exactly how dominant they actually are. Because like you said, the first 4 games, not really going to be tested, in my opinion. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. Let's transition to the defensive side of the ball.
the offense.
Or the offensive side of the ball. You're right. Yeah. So we just talked about the defense. We'll transition to the offensive side of the ball, talking about Brandon Streeter and Kyle Richardson as the passing game coordinator. So Brandon Streeter is going to be the offensive coordinator. Kyle Richardson's the passing game coordinator. What are your thoughts on those two dudes this season versus Elliott last season?
New eyes. Because I think Tony Elliott, he did a fine job. But once Brad Scott went down to South Florida, I'm not saying Brad Scott wasn't. I'm not saying he was a great one, but I think they needed each other, and I like the co-offensive coordinators, but I just don't think that he brought enough nuance to the game. I want to see. I keep hearing that these guys, when it was at Richmond, their offense ran pretty good. I believe they're bringing some option routes into the game, so we're gonna see how that works out. But I just wait and see. That's all I can say. I know I think Clemson needs to get with the quick game. I don't know if you remember Baylor maybe a couple years ago, just throwing the ball out there, catch the ball, go, catch the ball, go, like tempo. And I heard that's what they're going back to is getting a lot of tempo. Because if you look at our defense, if you look at our offense and why it was so successful, I think, yes, you did have a big, tall receiver like Mike Williams. However, you have players like Octavia Scott and Winfrey, Jordan Leggett, who can move the ball, and you had more options. That's one thing that Chad Morris, when he came to Clemson, that's one of the reasons why we were so successful, because we did use speed, we did use athleticism. I think we got too happy with saying, okay, we got 2 tall, good receivers like Higgins and Ross. Go throw the ball and let's see if they can get it. We done attack in the middle of the field, and I think that's what we're going to go back to this year.
So while we're on the subject of offensive coordinators, what's the reason you think Tony Elliott kind of got away from that stuff? You think he got comfortable relying on people like Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence, or what do you think the reason for our offense becoming kind of vanilla, kind of like super dependent on elite quarterback play? Because in my opinion, that's kind of what our offense became. It kind of became super dependent on elite quarterback play. And if that wasn't working, we didn't really have any other option. And I think that's kind of what we ran into last year is DJ got smacked in the mouth. He wasn't up to the task of what it means to be a Clemson starting quarterback and what that responsibility really is. And I don't think Tony Elliott had a counter. And it was it was crazy to see how our offense just kind of started all year without, like, I remember going into our bye week last year and I was like, you know what? It's been bad, but we'll get through this. They'll spend the off week. They'll figure some things out. They'll do some self scouting, and it just never happened. It really didn't.
Oh, I agree. I think what he saw was that he had receivers like EJ Williams, both of the Ross and Higgins, like I can out talent the guys ahead of me. Then they ran into LSU and Ohio State that year, and it's like, you can't always do that because you got more talent in the ACC, more talent than most of the ACC when you get to the top dogs and you had to play them. And I just don't think he ever adjusted his system to it. And also, we got away from recruiting those type of receivers. Where's your quick guy? Where's your Amari Rogers? Where's your Artavis Scott? Where are those type of guys at? Yeah, or guys that can run a jet sweep around the way. That's what I think you're going to see more of this year. Having EJ Williams and all them other guys are nice, but you do need to have a little bit of flavor. Let's go a little
you need that Brandon Spector, that Will Taylor. You need those kind of dudes.
Yeah, and let's go a little bit 5 wide, a little bit. You don't always have to put the running back. I know people be like, they keep the running back and tight end in for the defense can't change their formation. But let's get a little bit of flavor in there, and let's put 5 wide out there. It's like a little quick game. Catch, go, catch and go. Wear out the all defense. Bring Shipley and the boys back in and run the ball a little bit. I mean, I know I'm not getting paid millions of dollars like these guys are, but that's what I see. What's wrong with my Clemson Tigers? The quick game is gone. Yep. The jet sweeps are gone.
The quick game is gone. The utilizing of the tight end is gone. Trying to utilize the middle of the field is gone. All that stuff kind of disappeared in our offense the last, 3 years or so of Tony Elliott. And it was super frustrating to watch. And I know Dabo Swinney's, kind of deal was, you got to keep the team together. He's got to say all the right stuff in the media. But I'm going to be honest, last year it was frustrating to watch. And for it to be defended time and time again after every single game. I know they use the excuse I remember after the Georgia Tech game last year, they were like, well, they hit us with some stuff that we weren't expecting. And then that continued the entire year. And it was just like, how much do you make? Like, why are you not expecting this stuff? Like, what is going on, right?
And that goes back to my 3-3-5 comments. And I think they brought that up. Georgia Tech didn't run the 3-3-5 the whole year. That only game that they ran in, they ran a 4-3 most of the year. The 3-3-5 is doing something to our offense that we don't recognize. And also, I would like to put this out there too. I know Clemson had a lot of close games, but also look at game control. Why were the games close? Georgia Tech is one of those games that we got to look at. Clemson dominated that game. And then we had the safety, the 57-minute delay. Remember, they had a 57-minute delay. Then they came out for a minute and 3. Then it went back inside. And then we tried to do that stupid thing where they snapped the ball in the end zone. Then we got a safety. I mean, I'm just sitting there like, what is going on here? Right. But I think you really got to look at that 3-3-5 defense or the 4-2-5 defense and say, what is people seeing in our offense that give us problems with it? And maybe it's the quick game is one, because if those defenders are paying that far off, you want to get in those little holes and hit the pad real fast. If you look at NC State game, that's another thing NC State did to us too, is that literally got the ball out so fast and that little crease right there, and they get like 4 or 5 yards, and stuff like that. It was never enough for deep. But yeah, I think that's what killed Tony Elliott. He just didn't adjust. And let me give Clemson fans a little reminder too. We got to look at stuff like that. What killed Florida State over the years for Bobby Bowden? He lost his coordinators. Mickey Andrews, Armada went away, and what's my guy name? Was coach at Georgia for a long time, Mark Richt. Remember, that was his pillar during those 11 years. And sometimes you gotta look at that like I could see the worry in Clemson fans, and I could see why, because we are losing some of the people. But sometimes Dabo, he was smart enough to say, pay Chad Morrissey and pay Venables enough money to keep them around and don't pay me till the next come around. And then when he started winning championships, that's what he did. When Chad Morrissey left, he went with Tony Elliott and Scott, and I think that's neither one of them were coordinators before, but he went with those two. So I think he made the right choice, but just be weary of that history lesson right there with Bob. So
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so we've gotten through the coordinator situation on the offensive side of the ball. So let's talk about, I guess, the elephant in the room, which is the quarterback situation at Clemson. So you got DJ Uiagalelei, who kind of balled out for 2 games in his freshman year against Boston College and Notre Dame, while Trevor Lawrence was out, and then followed it up with a completely terrible and abysmal sophomore season by Clemson standards and by anybody's standards, to be completely honest. I mean, the guy threw more interceptions than he did touchdowns last season. So there's no room for any excuses for DJ. Do you think he improves this year, or do you think Cade Klubnik eventually takes over this season?
I think he improved. I'm not gonna say I'm gonna say something crazy. I might be on the other side of this than most Clemson fans. I don't think you're gonna see Captain Covenant the whole year.
Really?
Yeah. I tell you why.
Okay.
What's the kid that came out of Northwestern? He used to go to Clemson.
Hunter Johnson.
Hunter Johnson. I couldn't think of his name.
Mm-hmm.
Hunter left because Trevor came in, and I know he didn't have a good time at Northwestern, but I really think that he's going to. I think they're gonna let my boy sit a year and build up his muscles and stuff. So I don't think we'll really see him. I know I'm probably wrong, but also let me also give another history lesson. Joe Burrows, his sophomore year, his junior year.
Yeah.
I mean, he was in college forever. Look at his numbers. It's his first year. His first year at LSU as starter, he threw for 2,894 yards, 7.9 yards a carry, 16 touchdowns, and 5 INTs.
It wasn't very good.
Right. They got shut out by Alabama.
Yep.
So the next year, he threw for 5,671 yards, 12.5 yards per pass, 60 touchdowns, six INTs. So sometimes it just takes coming in and hearing another voice. If you want another good example why people should be optimistic, Kenny Pickett threw for 42 yards versus Clemson in the championship game. So Kenny Pickett first year he threw for 509 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 INT. I think that's the game he beat Miami. Then next year he threw for 1,969 yards, 12 touchdowns, 6 INTs. Next year 3,098 yards, 13 touchdowns, 9 INTs. Next year after that, 2,004 yards. And then his fifth year, he threw for 4,319 yards, 42-7. So let me say this. Everybody wants to pick out Kelly Bryant coming in, Trevor Lawrence taking out over Kelly Bryant. We would not have beat Texas A&M if it wasn't for Kelly Bryant. Also, people point out Carl Stout and Deshaun Watson. But let me tell you the real differences in those two situations. DJ was one of the top two quarterbacks coming out. He just had a bad year. And maybe against Georgia, he lost a whole lot of confidence. But we already just seen 2 quarterbacks who wasn't as highly recruited as he was, and we seen what they did, they did with a little bit more development. DJ has taken it upon himself to go lose 30 pounds. Maybe the guy was getting tired Because if you go look at the start of the NC State game, the start of the Georgia Tech game, he had good numbers, but as the game went down or down, his numbers went down. So maybe that's part of the reason why DJ wouldn't have lost that weight. Maybe he was tired.
Okay.
And maybe he had to throw, and that maybe his weight had something to do with why his techniques were off, because as the game went on, he got tired. And they also said the guy was injured last year. He might still be missing people over the toss, but also the interior of the offensive line weren't very good. Our receivers were the same type of receivers. Why did he have so much good? Think about Cornell Powell and the success that DJ had with Cornell Powell. Cornell Powell didn't do nothing for 4 years, and all of a sudden, his fifth year, the light came on, and all of a sudden, you're like, where did Cornell Powell come from? And that was with DJ. They killed Notre Dame. They lit Notre Dame up. And that was with Hamilton, number 14 for Notre Dame, and playing free safety. So I really think people are giving DJ way too much hard time. And just look at the two quarterbacks who were average. Joe Burrows couldn't beat Haskins. He rests in peace. He couldn't beat Haskins out at Ohio State. So what does that tell you? You know that I tell you anybody could later on become a great quarterback. It depends on his hard work, and by him losing all that weight, I showed you the man is working on his game. I don't know how it's going to translate this year, but I think he's going to do pretty good.
I think he's dedicated, and I think a lot of the struggles last year were based off of offensive line. I think it was based off of a severely injured receiving core. I think it was based off of a lot of the same bodies at the receiver position. There was no variety. There was none of that fast twitch dude in the slot. There was nothing like that. And with that said, I also think that he lost a lot of confidence in that Georgia game. I think he got beat up. He may have gotten injured. He may have not got injured in that Georgia game. But regardless of the fact, he came out of that Georgia game a different quarterback than we saw in his freshman year and that we saw going into the Georgia game. Now, what I will say is that, yes, he has lost all this weight. He went down in the spring to Texas. He went to one of those quarterback camps. But also, what I will say is looking at DJ in the spring game didn't give me a whole lot of confidence as a Clemson fan. He didn't look any better to me. He looked pretty much like the same DJ that was on his sophomore campaign. Now, does that mean that he can't get any better? No, absolutely not. I think he can get better. I think DJ has all the talent in the world to be one of the best quarterbacks in college football this season. Now, will that come to fruition? I don't know. We'll see. That's to be determined. But what I will say is interesting to me. All offseason, the coaching staff's kind of been, DJ's the guy. This is his job. He's the starting quarterback, and all that kind of stuff. He's lost all this weight. He's more mobile. He's doing all the right things in practice. He's doing the extra work, and that's kind of been the mantra all offseason, right? But as we get to fall camp and the closer we get to the season, I hear a lot of talk in the coaches' interviews, and they talk about, Cade will play, and I hear the word competition a lot more often, and that just kind of gives me pause to like, what's really going on here? Why are they saying Cade will play?
No way.
If you're saying Cade will play, then how is DJ the guy, right?
But let me also remind you, remember, Clemson didn't really want Cade. Remember, they was after Ty Simpson after Alabama. So, I just think that DJ, we're going to see in the first 4 games, how much have you improved? And all the teams that you're going to play on your first 4 games, they are warmer games for sake.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, those are the ones. And then also, we got something on tape. You got something on tape to say, what do you do against the 3-3-5? Go back to what I was saying. Go back. You can go back and like this. Look at the first couple games on the tape.
With that said,
Huh?
how long do you think DJ's leash is?
I think it's long.
You think so?
I think so. Because the first four games,
I
the
think
first four.
I think DJ's leash is super short, and I think if he comes out against Georgia Tech and they run that same 3-3-5 like you're talking about, and DJ starts struggling, I think Cade Cudlick could see time week 1
Yeah,
in the
but
first
remember,
half.
I think you're gonna see them. But I mean, well, like I said, that's contradicting what I just said. But
Yeah.
what I'm saying is though, too. Now we done know that Georgia Tech and other teams been running this 3-3-5. So now they got something on tape to go look at.
No,
Now,
yeah.
yeah. Now the whole all season, but that also comes with if you were as good as coach as you say you are, Brandon Streeter, the other guy from Richmond, it's your job to develop that young man who went and lost that 30 pounds.
Right.
It's your job. Now, like I said, Georgia Tech only returns 3 people on their defense. How much you gonna learn out that first game? How much you gonna learn?
I don't think you're going to learn anything off the first game. But all I'm saying is, I don't expect Clemson to struggle with the first game. I don't expect them to struggle with the first 4 games, to be completely honest, especially with Sam Hartman being out for Wake Forest. I don't expect any competition in the first 4 games. But if DJ struggles at any point in those first 4 games, I think that does say something because he shouldn't.
They struggle against them. They are in
That's
trouble.
what I'm saying. And that's what I'm saying. So if he comes out against Georgia Tech week 1 and struggling and not completing passes and overthrowing people and throwing balls in the dirt like he did last season, I think Cade Klubnik could see the field early. And I'm just basing that off of kind of interviews and them saying words like competition and Cade will play. He's going to get on the field. He's too good not to get on the field. Like, I don't think that kind of talk breeds a whole lot of confidence in DJ. Why would you say that if DJ truly has done all these improvements over the offseason? You know what I'm saying?
Let me ask you a question. I'll go back in the day. You notice Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence's second year, they also had some type of issues, like what DJ went through last year. Like, remember the game that we beat NC State where the kicker missed the field goal? And Sean Watson threw a lot of INTs in that game. Sometimes, like I said, my question is the development, and Brandon Streeter's been the offensive quarterback.
Yep.
So my question is about development. What are you doing to develop this young man? This guy wasn't the number 1 quarterback for no reason. Remember, everybody wanted him. Alabama, whoever you could name, wanted this gentleman to come there. And I know that doesn't. Once you get on the field, your stars don't matter. They don't give you some power up. But I got to wonder. Your wife's funny. She said, "Babe, you have a weird echo. We are going to need to figure it out." It's in the comments. Well, yeah. But yeah, man. But I just think DJ's gonna do good, man. I really think. And they also reported his family went through a divorce, injuries. We don't know what was affecting the young man.
Right.
Yeah, because I heard that the other day. Like, yeah, his family just his mom and dad went through a divorce, and he was real close to both of them. So you just never know how that was affecting the young man. And he's really religious based person. So you just never know what was going on with him. So maybe he figured that out. So,
Yeah. I mean,
and that offensive line don't get better. I don't care if you have Joe Montana, Terry Bradshaw, Tom Brady. The offensive line and Terry offensive line don't block. I remember what Dan Marino used to say, the edges don't really bother him.
Yeah.
It's the interior blocking that bother him. And I want to go back to something. Go look at how many times Clemson versus NC State and Georgia gave a 3-man rushes sacks. Even my boy, what's my boy name? McFadden over there, left tackle. He gave up one. But go look at the other games. Go look at clips of little games where Clemson gave up sacks and everything against 3-man rushes. How
Yeah.
do you do that? I mean,
The offensive line was terrible last year. It was absolutely terrible. So, transitioning, what do we think the offensive line does this year? So you got, Will Putnam, Jordan McFadden, uh, Marcus
Miller.
State, Walker Parks, like those dudes out there. Do you think we get any better at offensive line this year? Do you think our pass block is better? I mean, we did discover quite a bit of a running game last season towards the second half of the season. That's kind of why we ran off that whole back half of the season with all those wins was, I mean, mainly dependent on the running game. So do you think we get better in the offensive line this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think Miller moving the right tackle helps out on the offensive line and putting Allen, because I used to see Allen get beat off the edge a lot. And I think that might help him. And they keep saying he's Miller, whatever the new starter is at right tackle, 6'6", 315 out of Ohio. He's a monster. So I think that's going to help out. But my problem is, where's the development? Go look at Clemson's last couple of recruitment passes. It's been Pennington. I can't remember all the other guys' names, but the guards they had developed were 4-star guards. I know stars don't mean nothing once you hit the field, but
Right.
where's the development at? And I think getting rid of that guy,
Robbie
Garber, I think that's going to help. I think Austin's going to help. To look at Alabama, Young got sacked, 60 times last year? Or something ridiculous like that. I mean, I know that he plays in the SEC, but that's still a lot. And, we just offensive line got to play better. And I think DJ being healthy enough to also contribute in the read option game is going to help in the quick game that everybody runs. I just think that they're going to play a lot better this year. I mean, our talent has never been an issue. It's always the interior of the line.
Yeah, we all know the quarterback run is always a big thing for the Clemson offense.
Right.
We also know that I think Thomas Austin was a good transition from Robbie Caldwell. You see the type of dudes he's recruiting. He's recruiting offensive linemen that are way bigger than what Clemson has recruited in the past. I mean, he's recruiting mountain men to the offensive line, which I like to see. I think we're much improved at that position this year. I think we found a little bit of a groove last season, so I think we continue on that. The other position group of question is wide receiver this year, right? So last year we were plagued with a bunch of injuries. Frank Latson, Joseph Ngata, E.J. Williams was hurt last year. We had to rely on Bo and Dakari Collins as freshmen last year to play a whole bunch of snaps, which no one would ever thought of. Will Taylor was out last year. What's his name? Brandon Spector was out last year. We had no slot guys. They put Justin Ross in the slot. That didn't work at all because he's clearly not a slot guy. He's gone off to the NFL this year, but we still do have a pretty deep wide receiver group. Now we've had Adam Randall come in. He flashed in the spring and then got hurt. He's supposed to be back, relatively early this season. So how do you think we're looking at wide receiver this year?
I mean, when I heard when Frank Latson and the guy that came in, they was like, well, he's way better than Sammy Watkins, like at this point. And I was looking at these guys, so like, for real? Like, I mean, just go back to Sammy Watkins versus Maryland. I mean, the things that dude used to do with a football, that's what I was expecting. And that's not what we got. I mean, they hyped them up so much. It's like, yo, like, you know, where is these guys at? And I know people like the first year, I guess they were buried under the depth chart, but they was always either hurt or
Always hurt.
yeah. Frank, I know people like Frank Last is going to do something at Miami. I'm like, I don't
No, he's not.
yeah. If
I'll believe it when I see it.
oh yeah, I was like, if he's not hurt, I mean, but we got some good receivers. EJ Williams played hurt last year. I think he played with a broken finger for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
He showed flashes his freshman year. This is his junior year with the Collins brothers. We got we got it. We've been recruiting at a high level at receiver.
We have you got Will Taylor, you got Brandon Spector at slot, um, Joseph Ngata, Dakari Collins, Bo Collins, EJ Williams, Joseph Ngata he's been healthy so far in the spring and fall this year, so hopefully that continues throughout the season. I
I
know
think
he's
he had 100 yards his first two games, didn't he? First
yeah,
two or three games.
yeah, absolutely, and he's had injury issues, but if he can stay healthy, I mean, he's got the frame to be, a Mike Williams, to be, that big time receiver that, we've kind of been missing that alpha that can go up there and get the ball when you need one, you know? EJ Williams is kind of like a similar build to a Justin Rolfe. So I think he can do a lot of good this season if he stays healthy. You got Brandon Spector, you got Will Taylor in the slot. So hopefully we have that kind of, obviously not as good, but that sort of Hunter Renfro role filled in the slot. Um, I think our tight ends look pretty good this season.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
I like what the coaching staff is talking about at tight end this season, utilizing the tight end more, utilizing slants, utilizing the middle of the field a lot more. You got Davis Allen, you got Jake Brennistool at tight end. I think both those dudes are primed for a pretty good season. So I think we're looking pretty good at receiver.
Yeah, and another thing I want to say, Will Taylor. We go down the list of all these guys, and we can say that, and they got the brain, the brand to do it. But when I watch, Ohio State has a guy named Fleming who was supposed to be like the number one recruit in all the country one year, and he cannot get on the field. And I'm like, how can they be this good at their development of their receivers? And we don't have better receivers drafted. I think last year was the first time since 2007 they had a receiver taken in the first round. Look at all the receivers we have taken in the first round. Mike
Right.
Williams, Sammy Watkins, blah, blah, blah. I mean, if we look through the NFL, Clemson's is like a, what you want to call it, like a football. They just got a lot of NFL talent. And Ohio State doesn't even compare currently. And I'm just like, if you go look at what Ohio State did to us and last time we played them, or you go look at what Alabama does with Smith, I'm just like, I'm trying to figure out why can our receivers do that? Is what's the guy name? Our receivers coach, he used to play at Clemson. Grimsley, I can't remember, Chad Grimsley or something like that. But I can't think of his name. But I'm like, where does your development come in at, man? Why are you not developing
Tyler Grisham.
Tyler Grissom? I'm like, where's your development at with these guys? I just don't understand why our receivers just look like so tall and lanky, but there's no like, I'm gonna go snatch this ball out the air and take it from you like Ohio State and Alabama does it.
I mean, we got a couple good careers. You got T. Higgins, you got Mike Williams out there. Like they're having good NFL careers. So yeah, I do get what you're saying. We should have a lot more based on how we've performed.
Sammy Watkins, Tyler Winfro is probably one of the best receivers out there outside of Cub.
Renfro is, I mean, he's really good. I mean, how crazy is that? This dude came out of Myrtle Beach playing quarterback in high school,
Option quarterback.
option quarterback in high school. This dude comes as a walk on to Clemson, catches the catch of all catches in the national title from Deshaun Watson,
Mm-hmm.
then gets another national title, and then goes on to the NFL, and he's probably one of the premier slot receivers in the NFL right now.
And that's what I'm saying. Why has the development slacked off?
Right.
I don't know if he was the I don't know if he was the receivers coach when
No, that was what's his name? That went down to Florida.
See, that's what I'm saying. It's like, yeah, Brad Scott.
Jeff Scott.
Jeff Scott. Yeah,
Jeff Scott.
Brad Scott's the father.
Jeff Scott was the receiver coach,
right?
And then co-offensive coordinator. And then when he left, I think Tyler Grisham took over.
Right.
So, yeah, Jeff Scott obviously developed receivers.
Yeah.
Maybe so Tyler Grisham's not the answer. I don't know. Maybe we need to make a change there. I've never really thought about that. So, yeah, that's a good point.
Even tight end. I mean, look at Dwayne Allen. Like you said, you bring up Jordan Leggett, who I still don't understand why he didn't have a better NFL career. But, I mean, look at the receivers Watson had the year that they went to the first national championship game. What's that dude? Start with a, it's like it was Octavius Scott. I think Dean was a freshman. Ramari Rogers was a freshman. I can't even start with a P. He played for the Jets for a little bit. He had some terrible receivers that he was able to do.
Sharon Pete.
Yeah, Sharon Pete.
Yep.
I mean, Sharon Pete, believe it or not, was higher ranked than Sammy Watkins coming out of high school. That was crazy.
I don't know.
Yeah, because Sammy Watkins was just amazing. When you talk about how good Frank Latson and the guy that was supposed to be, and you was hearing about him, you didn't see the same speed as Sammy Watkins. Sammy, go back to one of the.
It's crazy when you think that Sammy Watkins and what's his name? DeAndre Hopkins. They played on the same team.
Right.
Like, that's crazy.
Right.
That's insane.
We done left out so many receivers that's what I'm saying. It's like, where's the development that went on when we had these guys compared to what you have now? And that's why I say I like, where is it? I mean,
I don't know.
I just sit up there and look, and I'm like, is he not motivating? I know Dabo likes to hire from within, but sometimes maybe he might need to step out, and it's his style to go get somebody to say, hey, man, I need to develop. I know Brian Hartline's not going to leave Ohio State for Clemson, but it's like, man, you know,
why would he? He might.
Oh, no, Ohio State, he ain't leaving Ohio State for Clemson. But wow. But yeah, but I think our receivers are gonna be okay, man. But it just the legacy of the last receivers that we have seen for the last 10 years have been amazing. And
we'll see what we do this season. We'll see if we can stay away from the injury bug this season. So real quick, last thing we'll do. What's your prediction this season? What do you think Clemson's record is?
We're talking about far as regular season. I think we're going to go undefeated and win the ACC.
Okay.
I think this schedule was harder.
What do you think our tough games are this season? Yeah. So our schedule is, if you look at our schedule, it's not a super easy schedule. Like, so most of the time in the past, Clemson's schedule is kind of like, they'll just walk through the ACC and right into the playoffs. This season, not so much. What do you think our hiccup games is? So we talked about the first 4 games. We got Georgia Tech, Furman, La Tech, and Wake Forest. We're not worried about those. If Sam Hartman's back, maybe Wake Forest is a little bit more to worry about. But Clemson's never struggled, even when Sam Hartman is in the game. Even last year, when our offense was absolutely terrible, we still demolished Wake Forest. So I think the first 4 games are go ahead and 4-0 right there. But then we hit a series of games where we go North Carolina State, Boston College, and Florida State. That's kind of
North Carolina State. I'm probably the only person that don't think that's gonna be a close game. I really don't.
no, they're coming to the Valley.
Yeah, not the fact they even coming to the Valley.
They
They
coming to get that work.
Yeah, they barely beat us last year. Like it took double overtime on a
Right.
10-3 Clemson team. They're probably the best Carolina team, NC State team. Don't get me wrong. NC State has given Clemson some problems over the last 10 years. Sometimes, but I think they had a good team when they had Hines and who was the quarterback? He played for the Bengals. He played for the Browns right now. Jacob, somebody. And then they had Nick Chubb and all of them other guys. And Kobe Brissett. And then they had the Finley guy.
Yeah.
They had some good teams that gave Clemson some trouble. But I really think that Clemson's going to give it to them this year. And like, not just because they're playing down at Clemson. I think that Clemson gave them trouble last year with a lot of people hurt. And they lose a top receiver. They lose their top 2 running backs. They lose their best offensive lineman. And I know their defense is really good, but I don't really think that they're going to I think Clemson's going to go in there and whoop them. They're going to come down there and whoop.
That and we know there's no love between Clemson and North Carolina State. Like that's quickly becoming quite a feud on the fan side. I know, and then I know. I mean, you see Dabo and Dave Dorn. I don't think they really are too fond of each other.
No, I don't think they like it. Ever since Dave Dorn talked about Clemson have electronic equipment on the sideline.
Old laptop on the sideline routine.
Yeah, it was a DJ or something like that. There was something about a helmet and something. I was like, what's wrong with this dude? I mean, Dave Dorn. I know Mark's not too big of a fan of him, but he's managed to keep his job. And don't get me wrong, watch out. And I know I went to East Carolina, but watch out for the East Carolina NC State. I think it's 10.5. East Carolina's going to keep that game a lot closer than what people think because East Carolina returns a whole lot of people, and they're known to get transfers in. But Boston College.
Yeah, Boston College.
If that offensive lineman was playing, that one that got hurt,
yeah,
I would have more faith in them. But I don't know how many people Boston College returns off that team. But I like I like him.
So he was hurt for a lot of last season, but he seems healthy this season. So
yeah, and then they got a good slot receiver.
Yeah,
and Flowers, he's really good. So I like that. On defense, let me see. They return 8 of their defensive starters. That could be a tough game considering that they're going up north to play it. But it all just depends. It's hard to say. I think they had a pretty good running back last year. I can't remember, but I feel
like BC always has a good running back,
Right. But I think Clemson's going to win. BC does a good job of recruiting offensive linemen. Yes. I think Clemson's going to win. I don't think it's going to be close at all. But
I wish Clemson would recruit offensive linemen like BC does.
Right. Yeah, we just get one good left tackle every 3 years.
And it would be unstoppable with BC's offensive line.
Right. I mean, even on the Steve Add doozy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Far as Florida State go,
Yep.
again another game I think is not going to be close.
Not close.
Uh, the reason why because Florida State lacks the passing games to challenge Clemson. I watched that game yesterday against Duquesne, and I think all they did was ran the ball against Duquesne about 45 times. So I really don't think that's going to be a close game. But I mean, Florida State, they probably do have a lot of offensive talent coming back. So not a close game at all, I don't think.
Moving on to Syracuse.
As long as we don't play over the Carrier Dome on a Friday, hey, we good to go. I mean,
I
I
was
don't.
at that game last year.
Wow. Yeah, Mel Tucker ran on us the first half, and then Clemson came back and shut them down.
Yeah, I was at that game last year. I was still living up in New York at that time. I was at that game last year.
Okay. If we was at Fort Drum or something.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that was crazy. Yeah, I went down to Syracuse for that game. Me and my daughter went. I bought tickets for it. But do you think this is? You think Dino Babers' days are numbered in Syracuse?
Syracuse, like I try to tell Miami, Florida State, and Florida fans, the reason why you'll never be what you was because other schools have popped up. I think what kills Syracuse is that Connecticut has a football team. Because think
Mhm.
about how many good players they got out of Connecticut and Rhode Island back in the day. And
Right.
now they don't get those players, and they were getting people out of New Jersey. And now you got Rutgers with their TV money and other schools coming in poacher players. It's very hard to, but I mean, I don't think it's Tino Bravers last year because who else you gonna go get? It's hard to win up there at Syracuse.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, what's the expectation for Syracuse, right?
Right.
It kind of goes back to that. But Notre Dame.
That's an intriguing game, and I really don't know enough about Notre Dame outside they got a good defense and a good offensive line, which sounds like a normal Notre Dame team.
Yeah, Notre Dame always has a good offensive line. They're like BC. They always have a good offensive line.
But it's hard to tell about Notre Dame this year. I really don't know. I think they have a chance to be really good. We'll see the first game against Ohio State. It all depends how good Clemson's clicking. I think it's good that Clemson gets a bye before the game, and I think Notre Dame has to play somebody the week before. But I think Clemson wins that game and takes another lead on the board lovers over there.
Louisville. You think Louisville gives us any trouble?
No, but that's going to be a nasty game. Malik, the quarterback, said that Clemson got away with one because he got hurt. And I think Clemson defensive line. Yeah, but
Cunningham's a bad dude.
I think Clemson's going to play more safe this time and put two back and contain. You remember when the quarterback at Notre Dame had hurt us a whole lot because we didn't keep contained? I think
Yeah.
that's what you're going to see Clemson come back and do against Malik this time is keep him in the pocket and make him throw the passes down the field, and they're going to play coverage. And didn't they lose their best receiver to Alabama? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. All right, and then Miami. A lot of hype about Miami this offseason.
There's always a lot of hype about Miami.
Everybody's talking about Miami this offseason.
And Miami could be.
They're going to be in the ACC championship according to everybody. So
Yeah, they could beat Connecticut, Central Connecticut, and then all of a sudden they're gonna win the national championship. Like I remind Miami fans,
no.
the game hasn't been close in years. I mean, I can't remember the last time that game's even been close between Clemson and Miami. And I don't know a lot about Miami outside of their quarterback, and they had two good offensive linemen, which was a weak point for them at one point. But I think Miami will at least score 14 points on Clemson this year. But I think Clemson goes, they're going to run away with it. I mean, I really don't. I mean, the guy only had 8 games, and everybody act like he's the best thing since sliced bread. But again, a lot of people going to have more game tape on you. and it's funny. Miami, I know Clemson Sports. I think they lost to Georgia Tech last year. Miami lose some weird games to some
Did
people,
they lose to
and
Georgia
everybody's
Tech
so
last
big.
year?
Hold on, they lost to somebody stupid. It
I have
seems
to
like they
look that
lose to
up.
some weird
You might be
team.
right. Hold up.
No, they beat them by 3, but it just seemed like they struggled against a lot of weird teams. They lost to Virginia last year, and then they lost to Carolina.
Virginia.
Um, yeah, everybody keeps saying that they're gonna go that way because they got that new coach, but he lost to Stanford at when they were terrible last year. He lost to Utah twice in blowouts. How do you
Yeah,
lose to
Mario
Utah
Cristobal.
twice in blowouts? Yeah, Cristobal. What big game has he won? Everybody keeps saying, well, he won the Pac-10 that year. But my thing about the year that he won the Pac-10 was the fact that Washington should have went to the championship game, but they got pulled at the last minute. So I guess Southern Cal wasn't prepared to play Oregon. Something
Yeah,
weird like that. Something happened like that. So
they
they
got put
won't
in last
call.
minute and then they got destroyed.
Yeah. So they wouldn't call that a big game that he has won. Outside of Ohio State, in which I say Ohio State, they played them again. Ohio State probably would have wrecked them because Ohio State's off defensive line was young. Their defense was young last year, and Oregon beat them with a limited amount of quarterback. But I'm not really impressed with Maury Cristobal. I mean, they recruiting at a high level, but also all of a sudden Miami is finding all this money to build new stadiums and all this other stuff. Where was that before? So all I can know is sooner or later somebody gonna get caught with a Ponzi scheme because you know they gonna get caught cheating.
I hear you.
So and our good friends down at Columbus, South Carolina, last game of the year. It's
Oh,
hard to
Columbia.
say. Yeah, I heard of Mark got a South Carolina contributor, and he said he's picking South Carolina to beat Clemson this year. You just don't know because Spencer Radcliffe is a better quarterback than the ones they had last year. However, I would like to point this out. I'm a
Look here.
football. I'm a.
I
Isn't
will
it
say,
amazing?
I will say
Yes.
right now, their chance was last year, and they lost 30-0. That was their chance. They wasted their chance on a bunch of scrub quarterbacks, and it ain't happening. I'm sorry. There is no way with this defense we got coming this year that we lose to a team like South Carolina. I'm sorry. There's no way.
I agree with you on that one. Isn't it amazing how Southern Cal, who's known as USC, sucks in basketball and they should be a lot better, and USC that sucks in football is just like they kindred spirits, man, and they got the same colors and stuff. But think about how much talent South Carolina really gets all the best players out of the state of South Carolina.
They do.
Yeah, I know we don't beat them on Xavier Thomas and Travis Feaster, who I just don't know how Travis Feaster had a terrible time at Clemson.
He
But
went to the South Carolina.
yeah, he was. I guess he was trying to. Even there, he struggled. I don't get it. But my point is that South Carolina shouldn't be that bad. South Carolina actually brings in more money than Clemson does in football.
By far.
Yeah,
By
and
far.
I just don't get it. Don't give me this bullshit. Oh, don't give me this BS that they play in the SEC
Right.
because the side that they play on isn't as tough as the side that LSU plays on. You don't beat Georgia. I mean, you beat Georgia with a third string quarterback. So I mean, Florida hasn't been that great in a while. Missouri, okay. Tennessee's down, was down. They might be on a come up, might be on a come up. So you tell me why you shouldn't at least be 10-3 every year, 10-2, or 9-3 every year. Your only losses should come from Clemson and Georgia. Those two be your two losses right there. But you can't tell me why you can't be 9-3 every year. You're telling me that Kentucky, who doesn't care about football as much as they do as basketball, no matter what anybody says, they better be good at basketball than football. You tell me why you can't win more at South Carolina.
Right.
Because Clemson, if you ever look at the recruiting rankings, South Carolina always get their talent from the state of South Carolina. Clemson gets some from a little bit from North Carolina, a little bit from South Carolina, a lot from Georgia, then a lot from Florida.
Yep.
And they might get some from Texas, some from California. Go grab an offensive line from Ohio.
Yep.
But you cannot tell me why you can't do better than what you're doing. And that's a pure shame. It don't give me the fact that you just have more money than Clemson. You should be better. Don't give me the fact that you're playing the SEC. You don't play Alabama every year. So who else outside of Georgia? Who else should you lose to? I don't get South Carolina. And same thing with Southern Cal basketball. I don't get it. Why are you not better?
Same. All right, so that's it, folks. 12-0. That's what DeAndre has Clemson going this season. Going back to the ACC championship and going back to the college football playoffs.
It's going to be Clemson and Virginia in the ACC championship game. Virginia's going to pull a lot of upsets with Brandon Armstrong and then get to the ACC championship game and get smoked by Clemson. I'm telling you.
Tony Elliott getting on by his old head coach, right?
Oh yeah, he gonna get on by him, and I really don't think. I don't know why he took that job at not the fact that I wanted him gone, to be honest with you, but I thought there were other jobs that he had offers over the years that he might have. Yeah, because Virginia's a hard place to recruit because of their academics. Just like Georgia Tech and a couple other schools out there in the ACC.